And good evening, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Gaming Rules November 2019 live Q&A session. Now, if you are watching this live, please let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me okay. But I'm looking at my screen here and yeah, nothing is appearing. There's no chat appearing at all. And I know there is chat because I can see it on another screen. So yeah, just let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me okay. And I'm going to try and get these widgets working. So talk amongst yourselves. They were working earlier on. It's just sometimes it stops working and I don't know why. So live Q&A. There we go. That's working. Carl's here from N20 Games. Wait, you're not a cat. No, Lowkey's downstairs, I think. Now, the Facebook chat was working on Thursday, stopped working. I contacted Xsplit. They have let me know. I basically had to do like loads of stuff on my computer to try and fix it, and it's not working again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop over to Facebook. In fact, can somebody else do it? If you can pop over to Facebook, find the live stream on there. It'll be on the Gaming Rules page, and just pop a note into the chat to let me know that is working. Most people are here on the YouTube chat, which is good. So yeah, thanks to everybody for joining in. And we've got a bit of a bumper show tonight. There's a lot to get through. Simon's here, Matt's here, Carl's here, and yeah, everybody's here. Fantastic. Right. Because I'm going to talk randomly about bits of stuff. I'm also going to go through all of the questions that I've had on my BGG guild. I'm going to go through all the questions that I've had on the Board Game Trading and Chat UK Facebook group. And I'm also going to go through some of the questions that I'm getting on here as well. Steve says, I'm looking very youthful. Rested or just a haircut? It's just a haircut. Now, you may also have noticed I'm wearing a different shirt. And this is the first thing I want to talk about, because for the last 6 months, maybe even a year, I've been aware that I generally seem to wear solid colour shirts. And when you're filming, especially with, you know, the background picture, that isn't ideal. And I've been going to the shops and I've been trying to look for shirts with patterns on, so that it kind of breaks things up a bit. But every time I've looked at one, I haven't liked the look of it. And it's just me. It's just I like basically solid colour shirts. It's all I've ever worn. I've never really worn shirts with a pattern. So Vicky basically picked some shirts out for me and said, wear these. I like them. It's a bit of a pattern. And the point is, Vicky likes the look of them. And she said, if it doesn't look good on camera, then I can wear them in the house. So I'm wearing this now and I feel really uncomfortable. But it's just a psychological thing. It's not something I normally wear. I'm looking at myself on screen there and it actually looks okay. It's something I need to get over. The other thing as well is that there are other popular YouTube content creators that wear similar shirts like this. And I've been accused in the last couple of weeks of copying certain other channels. I didn't pick this shirt. Okay, so apologies. I'm not deliberately trying to copy anybody else, but Vicky picked it out. She said it would look good. I tried it on. So there we go. Right. There we go. So you can see the live feed on Facebook. Yes, but is there any chat on Facebook? That's the thing. Is the chat appearing? If it's not, I'm really not happy with Xsplit. Xsplit is a piece of software that I pay for. It's a good piece of software, but it has bugs. And every time I report those bugs, they get me to do a whole bunch of things that take loads of time, and it might not even fix the problem. So yeah, I'm going to go to Facebook now because if you're watching this on Facebook, I basically want people to be able to ask me questions in the chat there. There you go. Gaming Rules is live. And are there any comments? Yeah, there are 3 comments. Right. So thank you very much, Xsplit. It's not working. Ian saying put a screen behind you. Yes, I've thought about that as well. And there's things that I want to do with the background. So just bear with us a minute. I am going to send Xsplit right now a message and tell them it's not working. Yeah. So let's just go to this and let's go to this and let's go to that. I'm going to send them the link because yeah, not happy with it. Not a good advert for their software. And it's one of their plugins as well. It's not like some third-party widget. Not working. Thanks for wasting my time. I don't like paying for a piece of software. I mean, the support for Xsplit is good in one sense, is that you get an answer, but it's not good in another sense that, you know, I reported this problem to them and they just got me to reset the software, do all of this. And I'm like, no, anyway, right. let's go on to the questions that I've been asked so far in the chat, and then I'll get to the other ones later on. So, oh gosh, I got to read all of this. Oh, and the problem is the chat will jump up every time. That's the problem. So Rick wants to know what's been the hardest part of organising GridCon so far, which is also a question that I've had in from John Dunnett. I think John asked me exactly the same question on BGG. The hardest part, yeah, the trickiest thing about putting on GridCon. So GridCon is this weekend. I'm sort of nervous about it. I'm excited about it. I've got a whole bunch of feelings about it. What's really weird is something happened over the weekend where all of the people who'd booked into the hotel at GridCon got an email basically asking them if they wanted to upgrade their stay. And that included the offer of upgrading their stay to include breakfast. And I was like, wait a minute, I think breakfast was already included in the price. Now, there were lots of other upgrades offered on the email. And it was a standard email that goes out to everybody with lots of different upgrade options. It was just confusing for people because breakfast was already included. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is I went back through all of my emails with the hotel where we were organising GridCon, and I found the one where we'd agreed a price for the rooms and it included breakfast. And that email was from the 6th of November, 2018. So it's been a year and 3 weeks. Well, it's actually been more, because that was the second venue we looked at. It's been over a year. It's been at 14 months of planning and preparation. So for me to summarise all of it, it's been 14 months of obviously not non-stop work, but there's been a lot to do. The trickiest part, it's hard for me to say because there's so much. I'll tell you the bit that I'm most worried about. The bit I'm most worried about is the bit that's outside of my control, and that is things at the venue and the hotel not having enough staff available, not having enough food available, and things like that. They are used to coping with events. They've done 200 people events, 300 people events, and they've catered for that number of people before. And the first time I met with them, I said, look, don't underestimate how much impact this is going to have on your staff. This is 200 people who are going to live in this hotel and require food and drink for 16 hours a day. You know, they're not going to, some of them are not even going to sleep. And that's the bit that I'm worried about, is getting to the end of Friday and there'll be like an hour's wait for the food, or they've run out of some of the dishes, or they just can't handle. And I have stressed this to them over and over again, and I've done everything I can, but it is the bit that's outside of my control. So I am worried about it. As far as the trickiest part, yeah, not sure. There's a lot going on. Anyway, right, that was the first question we had in from Rick before we even started. I'm going to scroll back up. There's no way I can oh, that's one of the cats. Lowkey. I don't know. Right. So people here saying hello. People are saying hello. Better to wait until he's gone live to ask the chat. Yes. What's the collective noun for spanner-wielding maniacs? Right, because lots of people have got spanners. In the chat, that means they're moderators. Oh. Yeah. How can I freeze this chat? I don't know whether I can. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to here. Hang on. Right, so yeah, I'm going to go to the YouTube channel and I'm going to do pop-out chat. Can I do pop-out chat? Yes, I can do pop-out chat. And hopefully this is not going to resize itself so I can actually read the questions. Yes, here we go. Right. So we have had video and sound good. Looking very, yeah, okay. Can see the live feed. Right. Okay, Chris is saying it's a nice shirt, it suits me, and it's so good he said it twice. Right. Any plans to do a video for Flotilla? Right. Well, I can actually answer that question because I've actually started planning my set of live streams for post-GridCon. 90% of my brain effort at the moment is going into GridCon, but life doesn't stop after GridCon. And I need to start scheduling in those live streams now in order to start asking people to get people to come round. So I'm having to start planning things after GridCon already. And I can tell you now that Flotilla is in there. It is 2 p.m. Friday, December 6th. So yes. Now I'm going to read the rulebook first, because I've heard that the rulebook isn't clear on a number of places. So again, if it's clear, I apologise. That's just what I've been told. But it's so much so that I don't want to feel uncomfortable by trying to do a live stream of it, learning from the rulebook and having to stop and look up answers. So I'm gonna read through the rulebook beforehand, and I'm gonna get the other people involved in the game to also do that, and hopefully, yeah. So Flotilla, I'm looking forward to that. It sounded interesting since Matt from Creaking Shelves mentioned it on my pre-podcast show. So Lowkey Half says, first question, when can we expect Through the Ages hitting retail? I assume you mean the expansion for it. And CGE actually posted something on their website and social media pages earlier this week. And it's a really difficult situation with the Through the Ages expansion. And I'm not going to defend CGE just because they're a client and I'm friends with them. But it's really unfortunate what's happened. And if you want to know more, head on over to the CGE page to find out the full details. But it's been a combination of things. Essentially, they want the expansion so that you can't tell the cards apart. Other publishers will just print an expansion and the colours won't match, right? And all the sizes don't match. CGE don't want to do that. So they want to print an expansion where the cards match the base game originally. Unfortunately, the manufacturer of the paper that made the cards for the base game has gone out of business, and they literally cannot get the same card as they used for the base game. And they've been doing all sorts of tests with different card, and it absorbs the print differently and it looks different. So yeah, they're looking into options, but the option I think that they're going to go with is they're going to have to sell the expansion set that includes all of the military cards from the base game, because they're the ones that you don't want people to see that you've got. The civil cards, it's not so much of a problem because you see picking them up. But yeah, I think that's what they're going to do. So when, I'm not sure. That's with CGE. They're the best people to know. How much does the expansion of Through the Ages add to the game in your opinion? Well, that's really interesting because all it adds is well, no, it doesn't. Originally, all it would add is new leaders and new wonders, which you might think, well, that's not going to add much more, because most expansions for games, you know, add extra rules and extra things like that. We don't need any extra rules for Through the Ages. We just want, we just want more variety. So the leaders, they completely change the game, because once you know the game, you will be playing for certain leaders and you will be trying to grab certain leaders, and there are certain strategies that fit with certain leaders. And there's a lot of patterns that people can fall into. With the new leaders, everything's changed, right? The rules of the game are exactly the same, but suddenly things before, they carry a different balance. So that's really good. But what they've done is they haven't just put new leaders and wonders in there. There's some new military cards. There's some new aggressions. There's some new events, and they all mix things up. And the new wonders are fantastic. And what Vlad has done, and the rest of the design team, is you look at these wonders and it isn't just more of the same. They're very different and they work in a really different way. And yeah, I love it. FC Ramo saying, now you can do work for Check Shirt Games Edition. Yes, I like that. Lowkey Half says, what are your top 3 games of 2019? It's too early to tell, but I can tell you right now my top 2 games are Maracaibo and Cooper Island. I'm slightly biased because they're the kind of games which they're the medium weight Euro games that I love. There's a number of other games which this year I have played and absolutely love. Marvel Champions LCG, can't fault it. It's just brilliant. I absolutely love it. Put that in Maracaibo in the room together and I'm like, I can't compare these because this is a medium weight Euro, which is my thing, and this is a co-op LCG that's also my thing, but a different kind of my thing. So yeah, I will be doing my top games probably at the end of the year, but right now, Cooper Island and Maracaibo. But I've got so many other games that I haven't played, and there's so many games that I have played that I've thoroughly enjoyed. So yeah, it's hard to tell. Stephen says, how often do you learn games from other people? Do you prefer to teach the game or learn from somebody else? most of the time, like 90% of the time, I'm the one doing the teaching. But sometimes I do learn games from other people. I don't mind it. I quite enjoy it because it gives me a bit of a break. Some of my friends are excellent at teaching games and I have no problem learning from them. Some of my other friends will admit themselves that they're terrible at teaching games and I don't want to learn from them because they'll probably get rules wrong. They'll probably explain it in a diabolical order that actually makes it just more confusing. So, and again, I'm not having a go at them. They will say themselves that they're not good at teaching games. But yeah, some of my friends are really good at teaching games. I have no problem learning from them. It just doesn't happen very often. Fourth question. What 3 games do you know about that you're looking forward to in 2020? I can't answer that. Apart from some games that I'm actually involved in professionally, some of which I can't talk about, I'm not really aware of what's coming out in 2020. If you know of any games that are coming out in 2020, let me know the names in the chat now and I might suddenly go, oh yeah, I've heard of that one. But no, I can't answer that right now. John Wheeler says, have you played any more of Trismegistus? Has your opinion changed? Did you watch the live stream the other day? Did I do a live stream the other day? Oh, yeah, I did no, I haven't done the solo game yet. Yeah, I think I did the live stream the other day. I think me and Paul played it, 2-player. Yeah, so I've actually played it. Yeah, that was my 3rd game. Well, 2 games. So my opinion of it, my opinion on the game hasn't changed. My opinion was still the same as it was the first time I played a full game, which was one Saturday night at Tabletop Gaming Live. But my 2nd game of it, no, in fact, that was my 3rd game because I think, yeah, right. Me and Paul played it 2-player on the Tuesday, and then on the Wednesday, I did a 3-player live stream. That was it. So I've now played it 3 times. And my feeling playing it the 2nd time was that I was a lot more comfortable. My first game was like, I have no idea what's going on. There's so many things here interconnecting, and I can't get my head around it. And the 2nd game was like, okay, I'm more comfortable with this now. I kind of know where I'm going. And the 3rd game, I actually felt quite comfortable with it. The rules are still a bit odd. Well, the rulebook makes it difficult to learn how to play it, and some of the graphic design isn't great in places, and that just makes it harder. But there's a very good game in there. It's very brain burny, and you need to have your plans of what you're going to do at the end of the game fairly near the start of the game, because you're given this master experiment thing that you've got to try and do by the end of the game. So yeah, my opinion on the game hasn't actually changed. It's a solid, heavy game. Yeah, I would say, some people might say medium to heavy. I think it's verging on the heavy. Adam's here. I agree with the comments that you look rested. Do I? I don't feel rested. It's just the adrenaline and looking forward to doing these. Mark says, finally caught one of your live Q&As. Not sure if you've played many or any Hollandspiel games, but if you have any recommendations for the sale that's going on right now. I don't think I have. Hollandspiel. Are they Tom and Mary Holland? Did they do Irish Gauge? Is that them? So, yeah, not sure. Right, Lowkey Half, 5th question. What is the game you would love to play the most but didn't come around yet in your board gaming life? Well, I'm very happy to say that most of the games that I want to play, I get chance to play. I can't think of anything right now that is a game I would... Right, oh no, I can. A game I would love to play, Imperial Assault. I really want to play Imperial Assault. I was one of the people that helped persuade Rick to buy a copy recently, and I've not sat down to play it. And I really want to. And I haven't ever played Imperial Assault, and I really want to. And it's doable. It's within my grasp. Rick has a copy. He's painted the Stormtroopers. So yeah, I want to play it, and I'm going to play it. Until yesterday, Tainted Grail wanted to play. Played it yesterday. Fantastic. If you'd have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said Magic Realm. A game from the 70s that's just diabolically complicated. A massive rulebook that is so hard to learn how to play. But it's one of those games that I would, set my mind. This is going to be dozens of hours of work just learning how to play. And now I've moved on. I'm like, no, I haven't got time for that. Why bother? I'll just play, all my other games instead that I love playing. Question about when you're playing. No, I won't. Okay. Well, I've just talked about it. I've just talked about Imperial Assault. Maracaibo still of your game of the year, or is it Cooper Island? Cooper Island for me is a better game. I liked Maracaibo, and I'm not saying that I didn't like Maracaibo, but Cooper Island nudged it out of top place for me. It was really, really good. Yes, I've had a haircut recently as well because it was all over the place. More personal question: are there any games you wished existed? What's the gaping hole in your collection? Well, that's two questions in one. Any games you wish existed, and what's the gaping hole in your collection? So, gaping hole in my collection. I don't know, actually. What game do I want to have that I don't have? Can't think. Nope, can't think about that. Well, I can think about that. I can't think of anything to answer that. I don't think I've got a gaping hole in my collection. If I do, and people who know me and know my collection, please let me know. I'm going to finish the questions in the live chat, and then we're going to have a little bit of a break, and I'm going to tell you about the contest. You're going to need the hair filter. So oh, hang on. It's scrolled up. Ah, right. Okay, where we go. Welcome to the chat. What themes would you like to see more of in games? Oh, well, we have a lot of themes. We have a lot of themes in games. So I'm not going to say fantasy co-op. I'm not going to say sci-fi. I'm not going to say all of that stuff because we've got dozens of those. Trading in the Mediterranean, building medieval villages in France, harvesting resources, growing stuff. We've got dozens and dozens of them. And we've even had some obscure things like, you know, Tricerian, Cerebria, Holding On. We've had a lot of unusual themes recently. What themes would I like to see more of? I think just more unusual ones. More ones reflecting something that happens in real life. But you've got to be very careful because at the end of the day, it's a game. And a game, a little bit like a film, sometimes has to have a fantastical element for it to be a bit more interesting. So if you did a board game about a day in the life of gaming rules, it would be pretty boring. So people kind of want something a little bit outside of the norm in order to find it interesting. Anyway, yeah, I'm not sure. Sixth question. What was your worst board gaming experience in general? And what was your worst gaming experience because of how you disliked the game? Oh, I've had a few of them. Worst board gaming experience. Oh, gosh. And thankfully, I don't think I've had any or many in the last few years. But yeah, I'm sure I've had some. What was your worst gaming experience? Well, yeah, I mean, there are some, again, I think I've been fairly lucky in the last 12 months, or maybe even a bit longer, that most of the games I've played, I've really enjoyed. It's been a long time since I played a game that I disliked so much that, you know, we stopped playing. So one of them was the original Dimaka. When I played that about 10 years ago, we stopped playing after round 2 because most of us around the table, one person liked the game or wanted to play it. The rest of us just absolutely detested it. Now I have the new version of Dimaka and I've been told the bit that I detested has been fixed. We will see. But that was an extremely bad gaming experience because I was so looking forward to that game for a long time and then it was just horrible. That same weekend I had a game of Settlers of Catan where I refused to use the dice because they were too random and we used the cards instead. And then the number 4 kept coming out all the time. The 4 would come out, the 4 would come out, then we'd reshuffle, then the 4 would come out, and it was just silly. So that was something that stuck in my memory, and that was like 12, 13 years ago now, I think. But yeah, I've had a lot of bad gaming experiences. I can't think of any right now. Graham says you better be coming up with YouTube in a separate YouTube window. That's what I've done. Who is this fashionable young man in the lovely shirt? I don't know. I wouldn't have said young. Yeah, in 7 months' time, I'll be 50 years old. That's a scary thought. Andy's here, but he has a plumber here, so he's going to dip in and out. Dip In and out, plumber. Was that a deliberate pun? I don't know. Carl from N20 Games says, if I visit London next year, do you know a good game cafe or shop to visit? Well, it would be wrong of me if I didn't suggest the Ludicrous Game Cafe in Croydon, because Nick's a patron supporter of mine. So, yes. Yeah, if you go to Croydon, thing is, London's a big place. So I can say go to Croydon. It's nowhere near the town centre. But, yeah, I definitely recommend checking out Ludicrous in Croydon. And Scott says, Ludicrous in Croydon. Any plans to do a Sleeping Gods? From Ian Robinson. No, I don't know Sleeping Gods. I assume it's a game. But yeah, I don't know that. Bruce is here. Hi, Bruce. Andy also says Ludicrous. Ian Brocklebranks here. Hi, Ian. How often are inadequacies in a rulebook identified upon first read-through as opposed to first play or even several games in? That's a brilliant question. That is a really good question. So, how often are inadequacies in a rulebook identified upon first read-through? Depends on the editor. If you're like me, blowing my own trumpet for a minute, I'm pretty good at reading things and spotting things that a lot of other people wouldn't spot, and that's just on a read-through. However, until I've actually sat down and tried playing the game with the rulebook, my job isn't done. And I don't get the chance to do that quite often. I'm working on a rulebook right now. I've never played the game. The publisher hasn't sent me a prototype. I don't have the chance to play the game. I'm working on it as best I can, but that game might come out, and some people go, oh, what do I do in this situation? And I'm like, oh yeah, well, if I'd have played it, I would have known. But, you know, I do my best at doing it beforehand, but I very much like to play the game through myself. So yeah, how often are inadequacies in a rulebook identified upon first read-through? Depends on the quality of the editor. As opposed to first play, most should come out in the first play, or several games in, that's where you normally uncover a situation which doesn't happen in every game. All those three are points where things can be identified, and my job as editor is to try and catch as many of them as possible beforehand. Any examples of each? Yeah, lots. I'm trying to think of some at the moment. I mean, I made a mistake on the Dice Settlers original rulebook, and I held my hands up to that. Me and David Turtsey accepted joint blame for that. But in the original rulebook for Dice Settlers, when you recruited a die, we didn't say where it went. We didn't say whether it goes into your used pool or your reserve area, and that was just something which, looking back, was a mistake that I made. It turns out it was actually in an earlier version of the rulebook, so it was in there, and somehow in the editing process that rule got accidentally chopped out. So yeah, apologies for that, but they released a 1.1 of that rulebook fairly quickly. Oh, Susie's here. Finally sat watching with dinner. What have you missed? Nothing. Daniel Newman says, played Cooper Island at BGG and did not enjoy it. Yeah, well, you're wrong, Daniel. It's a very good game, so I can only assume you were taught incorrectly or something, because it's fantastic. It's a very good game. It's way too tight. Yeah, it's very, very tight. But there's another game, Trismegistus. I think Trismegistus is even tighter. Trismegistus, you have to plan so much to be able to do that experiment at the end of the game. You've got to have these, and you've got to have 3 of them, 2 of them, 1 of them, and you need to be on level 11 of this track, and you need to have that, and you need to have that, all to do this one experiment. And you spend your whole game moving all of these little sliders in all exactly the right positions. I think that is tighter than Cooper Island. Cooper Island is tight, but you still have some flexibility. 7th question from Lowkey. What is the most complex game you've ever played? Well, probably something like Through the Ages or Mage Knight. In terms of rules complexity, both of those games have a very large number of rules and a very big rule book. Robinson Crusoe, which I was the editor of the new version of the rulebook for, that's probably up there as well as a game with lots of rules in it. So they're probably the most complex ones I've played, I think. I mean, going back, I've played 2038, which is an 18xx game by Tom Lemon, and that's really complex as well. But the actual rulebook is small, but it's an old school rulebook. It's just bullet points of information that's really hard to learn from. So yeah, they're probably the most complex games I've played. What is your first impressions of Tainted Grail? Anything you can tell us without spoilers? Yeah, I'll tell you what I said on the Slack channel this morning. I had high expectations going in, but I was reserved because so many times I've been burnt by going into a game with high expectations and then it being disappointing. So I went into it with high expectations, but thinking, just be prepared. This might not be as good as you think. And it was better than I expected. Now that's on an initial playthrough of an hour and a half. Absolutely loved it. Can't wait to play more. If I didn't have GridCon prep to do, then I would be playing it now, probably. If I didn't have this to do, I'd be playing it now. It's really good. And I just can't wait to delve more into it. Yeah. Right. So, yeah. Discussion about Cooper Island, basically about how Daniel's wrong for not liking it. For those people who don't know, me and Daniel have a bit of banter. So if you think I'm being rude to him, I am, but he pays me to be rude to him. So that's fine. You mentioned Cooper Island and Maracaibo only being medium weight. What games do you consider heavy and which ones are your favourites? So I actually think both Maracaibo and Cooper Island are medium to heavy. I think they're definitely above medium, but I think they're below heavy. So heavy games for me are Mage Knight, Through the Ages. Trismegistus is lighter than those two, but still quite heavy. Although the rules for Trismegistus are medium weight, but the brain power that you have to go through is quite heavy. Other heavy games, I've mentioned Robinson Crusoe, Twilight Imperium. There's a lot of rules in there. I remember teaching Twilight Imperium 3rd edition once, and it was 90 minutes to get through all of the rules, and I'm like, wow. And heavy games, anything by Vital Lacerda. Anything by Vital Lacerda is a heavy game, possibly even bordering on super heavy for some of them. On Mars is pretty heavy, so yeah. And David Sars says he loved Magic Realm. Right, I'm glad other people have heard about Magic Realm. Gumshoe, I want to play that too. Yes, I can't remember even. Oh yeah, a game that I want to play. Gumshoe, definitely want to play Gumshoe. 8th question: how far are you into the Tainted Grail campaign? So we played Scenario 1 last night, or Chapter 1, and we didn't finish it. We didn't get a rule wrong, but I've been speaking to them today because there's something you have to do when you complete your first quest, which tells you to draw another card. We read the text on the other card, and story-wise, it didn't make any sense. So we assumed it was wrong, and we shouldn't have read it at that point, and we should have read it when we did something else. And then we spent 3 more days, we couldn't do the something else, and then we ran out of time. Well, we actually stopped playing, but we would have run out of time, we wouldn't have been able to do it. I've talked to them today, and that text should have been, it was exactly right. The text on there, although it didn't fit in the story and didn't make sense as far as the story goes, and I might be being a bit harsh here, but it didn't to us, so much so that we assumed it was wrong and did something else instead. We would have been fine. So yeah, we're only on Chapter 1. 2 players. Both of us agreed that we're probably only ever going to play it 2 players, because when one player is taking their turn, if all you do is move, spend 1 energy, move, done. But if you have a combat, you're going to have to play out that combat, and the other players are going to have to sit and watch. If you're like us two, we're helping each other with the combat and we're both playing through it, so there was no downtime. But if you're playing a 4-player game of it, and when you're doing your combat, the other players are sat there twiddling their thumbs, there's going to be downtime. So don't play it like that. Play it and get involved in other people's turns. 8th question. Oh no, we've done that. Imperial Assault is great. Feel Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth is better and very similar. Well, I've played Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, so we will see. Oliver's here from Tabletop Games Blog. Thank you very much for joining in. Gironi saying nothing beats Imperial Assault as far as dungeon crawlers go. Yep. I'll let you know when I've played it. How is GridCon preparation going? Well, I've got a massive list of things to do, and I am slowly ticking them off. I'm spending about 4 to 5 hours a day at the moment in just doing all of the stuff that's needed. And it's tiny little jobs. It's, oh, the flyer's done. Right, send that to Adam to print. Cutting out the lanyards. Going through the t-shirt orders and putting labels on inside one. Each one of them is a small job, but everything needs to be done. And today I've probably spent about 5 or 6 hours getting stuff ready for GridCon. I've now organised all of the raffle prizes for the charity raffle. I think we have, what, £2,500 worth of prizes, or maybe even £3,000 worth of prizes for the charity raffle. So yeah, there's a lot. What's your secret to staying as young looking and as handsome? Well, I don't know about handsome. What's my secret to staying young looking? I've always looked younger than I am. The problem is, when I was coming up to 30, I was still getting asked for ID in pubs. It was scary. So there was no way I could ever go to a pub drinking before I was 18. And even for 10 years after that, I was still getting asked ID. But I don't have a secret, I'm afraid. It's just, I obviously have a youthful appearance. As I say, the haircut does help. Ninth question. How many games do you currently have in your collection? My BGG list is not up to date. I need to go through it and update it with all of the new ones that I've bought and get rid of some of the ones that I'm putting into the charity raffle at GridCon. It's probably about 500, but where do you class Arkham Horror? I've got the Arkham Horror card game with all of the expansions. As far as BGG goes, that's 30 games in my collection. As far as I'm concerned, that's one. So yeah, with LCGs or expand, I've got a promo tile for Teotihuacan. According to BGG, that's another game in my collection. So it's probably about 400, something like that. Maybe a bit more. What is your favourite game designer who needs to publish a game right now? Well, I don't know. I have a number of favourite game designers. Vlada Shavatel, Vital Lacerda. Who else? I mean, I like Stefan Feld games. Alexander Pfister. And there's a number of other designers as well. John D. Clare's one of my favourite designers. I like a lot of stuff he's done. There's a few designers out there right now who have only done a few games, but I've liked the games that they've done. And I've played 3 of their games, and I've liked all of their games. Does that mean they're one of my favourite designers? If they are, I could probably list about 20 people. So, yeah, as for publishing a game right now, I'm not sure. Time travelling bus. Yes, I don't know what question that was in relation to. Barasir says, can you see any trends in board gaming looming on the horizon? Like past trends like legacy games, Mars themed games, etc. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's looming on the horizon. As I mentioned early on, I hope we're going to get more games with a quirky, unusual theme. I like that. So yeah, hopefully we'll get more of them. But yeah, I don't know what's coming on the horizon. Obviously, we've got legacy games. We've had lots of Mars themed games. I think that's slowing down now. So yeah, who knows? I'm not sure where we are with app integration as well, because we've had a few of those. I don't know where that's going. I don't think that's as, it's not like that's completely taking over. Paul Luxton says, last game I remember you really disliked was Fortress America. Yeah, Fortress America was a very bad gaming experience because the game is just awful. I mean, awful. Like, I cannot understand how anybody now would ever think that game has anything in it at all. Maybe 30 years ago people have played it, but it's just awful. It really is. Any bad board gaming experiences is because of bad players, rude, violent, table flippers, etc. Yes, but thankfully now I generally surround myself with people who like the same sort of games I do. But I've had, maybe not violent, but I have had people get angry, aggressive, and it just puts a downer on the whole table. People who are rude and everything else. Claire says hello. Hello to Claire. What's your favourite solo game? Yeah, well, so I'm not really a solo gamer. I've been doing a lot of solo games recently because of the channel and the live streams and everything else, and I quite like doing it, but I wouldn't class myself as a solo gamer, and I certainly can't tell you what my favourite solo game is because I haven't really played many of them more than once solo. So yeah, I'm not sure. People say that Mage Knight is the best solo game ever designed. I would always prefer to play a game at 2 players rather than 1. Always. So yeah, it's hard for me to pick a solo game as my favourite game. As I haven't played much more. Escape Plan isn't that heavy for a Lacerda game. I think Escape Plan is the lightest of his games, but I still class it as heavy. Bruce is saying his heaviest game ever is World in Flames. Yeah, but not a Euro. That's true, but it's still a heavy game. Scott's saying Escape Plan gets heavier the more you play it. Okay. FC Ramo says, have you played La Stanza? I haven't, but I have heard about it. Julian says, thank you for your review of City of the Big Shoulders. It saved me money. Well, I'm glad it was useful. The thing is, City of the Big Shoulders is getting a lot of press. People are playing it. People are loving the game, and that's great. Personally, I didn't enjoy the game myself. My comments on the rulebook were separate from how good the game is, and I wish some people would take that into account. The game can still be a good game. I personally didn't enjoy the game, but if you separate that, my opinions on the rulebook, as I said in my review, that rulebook was not clear, and that rulebook had a lot of problems, and I pointed out in the video where those problems were. And I'm still coming under criticism now for saying, Paul's talking nonsense. The rulebook was absolutely fine. The rulebook's not absolutely fine, and if you think it is, I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm going to go out and say you're wrong. I showed in the video exactly, you've got rules here that should have been here. You've got a bit here that's missing and differs from what's on the player aid. That's a bad rulebook. I'm sorry. It's just, that's how it is. It's a bit disappointing they haven't yet put the new rulebook online. It was like 2 months ago when we gave them the feedback for the rulebook, and they've not put the new rulebook online. I don't know why. I don't know why. Anyway, rant over. I'm getting to the end of the chat. I'm almost there. 10th and final question. I am making a board game for the last 3 years. Next year it will be finished. Would you be interested in taking a look and guiding you through the release process? I'm always happy to try and help people out where I can. But obviously my time is limited. And if you're asking me to get involved in a professional capacity, then drop me an email and yeah, we can discuss it. I'm more than happy to help. The problem is I get a lot of people asking me for help. And if I was to help everybody who asked for it, I would be spending 4 hours a day for free helping people. And unfortunately, I can't do that because I've got work to do. But yeah, let me know when you're at that stage and I can certainly have a quick chat with you. Paul, is there a game you're played and thought, this is taking board game to the next level? Is there a game you've played and thought, this is taking board gaming to the next level? Yes, definitely. When I first played Gloomhaven, maybe even Tainted Grail with the storybook and all of that and the way that was. And I don't think Tainted Grail would have happened without Gloomhaven, without Seventh Continent, and without things like that. So a lot of other games have built the foundations for other games coming out, which have then taken things to the next level. The first time I played Cloudspire, I was like, wow, this is so very different. This is a totally different style of game. And yeah, I mentioned Marvel LCG the other day. That for me, although some people might say, oh, this is just another cooperative LCG that's nothing special. For me, it's a very refined version of the LCGs. It plays quick, it's fast. You feel like you're in a Marvel movie. So yeah, a lot of games for me have been really, I think I'm probably being excited about playing it and taking games to the next level, probably a bit confused. I mean, if we take Cooper Island, is that taking gaming to the next level? No, right? It's just a really solid, good game. But is it taking gaming to the next level? No. Whereas Cloudspire potentially is just because it's doing something new and different. Have you ever been into a traditional hex and tile war game such as Ambush or Advanced Squad Leader? So, yes, 35 years ago, when I was starting with gaming. And I'm not going to say I was into them. I had a couple of them. I had a Vietnam game, which apparently took 3 days to play and had like diabolically complicated rules. So I've not really played many of these games, but I had a couple of these games back in the late 80s. And I really wanted to play them. I just never really did. But every time I see a hex and counter war game, you know, with tiny little chits with numbers on and a little icon, I have a nice feeling about those, as if it's something from my past that I enjoyed doing, even though I never actually did it very much. I think I probably did it once. Right, MK, Oliver's daughter wants to know, have you played Love Letter? Yes. If so, what character would you be? I have played Love Letter. I've enjoyed it and not enjoyed it. The first few times I played it, I was like, this is completely random. And then I played it at Origins in a cafe with the CGE crowd while we were waiting for pizza to arrive. And it was really good. I enjoyed it. What character would I be? I'm not sure. I can't even remember the characters. There's a bishop, there's a princess, there's a guard. Answers in the chat. What character do you think I am from Love Letter? In fact, right, Oliver, you can tell your daughter this. Let's talk about the contest because we are 46 minutes in. I haven't even got to the Facebook questions yet. Vicky's going to be home in 15 minutes. Right, apologies for not mentioning the contest, but there's a contest. It runs now. To enter, you need to send me an email to my personal email address, which is paul.grogan@outlook.com. And you need to tell me what character in Love Letter do you think I am? Okay? If you don't know the characters from Love Letter, go and look them up quickly. But basically, you've got until now, from now until the end of the show. Send me an email, paul.grogan@outlook.com. If you are a patron supporter, please mention that in the email and you'll get 2 entries. And then I will do a draw at the end of the show. And one lucky winner is going to win £25 worth of games vouchers from Games Law. So yeah, drop me an email and let me know. paul.grogan@outlook.com. There you go. Paul's put it in the chat. Yeah, so thank you very much to Games Law for sponsoring this show. £25 worth of games vouchers is yours if you get picked out of the hat, virtual hat, random number generator. Right, almost up to date with the chat. What was your first wow, that was awesome game? Oh. I mean, when I played Talisman when I was 12, that was awesome. When I played Mousetrap when I was 6, that was awesome. When I played Princess of Florence in 1999, which was my first step into proper Euro games, that was awesome. So it's very difficult to say what my first one was. I've had a lot of them. Paul's trying to put the email address. There you go. Is there an Ewok in Love Letter? Well, there might be in the Star Wars version of Love Letter. I don't know. Right, I'm going to switch back to the other view now. Right, yeah, so the Facebook chat's not working at all. Really disappointing. I spent, as I say, I spent 20 minutes trying to fix it. I did everything Xsplit told me to do, and it didn't work. So, right, okay. Co-op or competitive preference? 5 years ago, it would have been competitive. In fact, 5 or 6 years ago, I thought cooperative games were not even games. I just didn't see the point in them. And now I absolutely love cooperative games. Preference? That's a really good question. Because right now, I can't say. I am 50-50 because I absolutely love cooperative games. Sitting down with Vicky last night and playing Tainted Grill, we're in it together. We're working out the puzzle together. We're talking to each other about what to do. If I'm honest, and I've never been asked this before, so shock horror, I actually think I prefer cooperative games now because I like the idea of sitting down and working things out with somebody else. Yeah, and I can't actually believe I'm saying that, Scott. So thank you very much for putting me on the spot and asking me that question because that's actually made me really think about it. Yeah, right. Graham's off to play Expedition to Newdale. Thank you very much for joining in. Contest, says Rick. Just done it. Tribulation says the first version of the French rulebook for City of the Big Shoulders has never been released. As one of the translators, I was disappointed. So the first version of the French rulebook has never been released. So it's been done, but it's just not been released. I don't know why it's not been released. Maybe because they realise there's problems with it and they're not releasing it, or just they haven't got around to releasing it. It's really odd. And I know everybody's busy, but the rulebook's a problem. The rulebook's bad. We've spent time in trying to fix the new rulebook. Do it. Upload 1.1 to BGG. Do it so that people who've bought your game have a better experience at learning how to play. Do it. It's important. They obviously don't think it's as important as I do, but that's because I have a thing with rulebooks and yeah. What was the question? Yes, what character would Paul be in Love Letter? Right, Carl's got to go. Thank you very much for joining in. We are up to date with the live chat. So I'm now going to go over to the BGG Guild. and go through the questions on here. So a question in from John Dunnett. Of all of the games that you've streamed with others since returning from Essen, which is your favourite? Well, I'm going to have to say Cooper Island. Although, no, actually, Cooper Island is my favourite game. I think it's the best game of all of the ones that I've played since coming back from Essen. But, right, for those people who don't know, I've been doing a lot of live streaming recently. Since getting back from Essen, and I was doing live streaming before I went to Essen, since coming back from Essen, I have done 18 live streams. That's 18 in 3 weeks, which is pretty good. So, Maracaibo, Marvel Champions, Sanctum, Underwater Cities expansion, Expedition to Newdale, Dado Cheng, Cooper Island, Trismegistus, Masters of Renaissance, Arkham Horror, Coloma, Mage Knight, Maracaibo again, Glenmore 2, Lux Eterna, Age of Steam, Runestones and Bus. Which was my favourite one of those? I mean, Maracaibo, loved it. Underwater Cities, loved it. Expedition to Newdale, enjoyed that. Cooper Island is a fantastic game. Mage Knight, it was so good to play it again. It was so good to teach it to other people, so I loved doing that. Coloma was a lot of fun. Glenmore 2 was good. Age of Steam was good to play that again. Bus, oh, it's a tricky one. I mean, the Cooper Island live stream that I did, I didn't actually play in it. Because 5 of us were here, so at which point I dropped out and I did the teaching. And I actually really enjoyed that. I think I did a good job of the teaching. I got the rules right, mostly. Matthias was there to pick up on a couple of things that I missed. And I think it went really well. As did the bus one, as did the Mage Knight one. I might have to say Mage Knight. Of all of the streams that I've done, my favourite one was probably Mage Knight, just because it's my #1 favourite game. I loved teaching other people how to play, and I thought it went really well. So yeah, that's my favourite one that I've streamed. I'm going to go to the live chat. Joe's here. There's a lot of variety in cooperative games. They shine when the game encourages equal interaction. Yeah, a lot of the early ones fell prey to alpha players, but they're better now. Yes, they are. Graham says, Rat missed the bit after the love letter question. Okay, I'm not sure what I said, but you can rewind it. Scott saying he had Mage Knight on his shelf of shame for a year. Thanks for last weekend. You've played it 3 times this week. Excellent. Explanation was fantastic. Well, Vlaja takes the credit for some of that because I basically followed the suggested teaching method of the rulebook, which is explain it, how you went on. And again, thank you very much to Rick, Nilsson and Vashti for coming over for that. It was fantastic. What is the oldest game in your collection that you still play at least once a year, or would if you weren't so busy? Oh, wow. I'd have to go... Right. Bear with us a minute. I'm going to try and answer that question for you. But to do that, I need to go to BGG. I need to go to my collection. And this is like 500 games. So I don't know how to sort through my collection in terms of the date that they came out. Yeah, I don't know how to do this. So it would mean scrolling through all of my games. Yeah, which is quite a lot. So yeah, I mean, if we go back, so I mean, Prince of Florence is a fantastic game, and that's like 1999. So it's not one of the oldest games. It's not the oldest game in my collection because I have games still in my collection from, you know, from when I started playing games back in the late 80s, very early 90s. And you're saying I would play once a year if I wasn't so busy. I mean, I'd love to play most of the games in my collection once a year. Ian said Maracaibo was fun. Northern in his space is here, late, but here. Thank you very much for joining in. Spirit Island is the best co-op for tackling the alpha gamer. Yeah, Stevie's here as well, better late than never. Well, that's one reason why I do the show starting at 6 and going on for an hour and a half, so that people can join in wherever we are. Right, back to the guild. Back to the guild questions. What is the most ridiculous board game idea you have ever heard pitched and why? So I saw this question earlier on and I tried to have a think about it. I don't get pitched that many games. I have done that in the past on behalf of CGE. People will come up to me and pitch me games, but I haven't had that much of it. it's interesting because you get a lot of pitches and some of the pitches are just... I remember somebody coming up to me when I was working for CGE at UK Games Expo. And if you're going to pitch a game to people, do your research. Don't just wander around a convention blindly pitching it to every single publisher, hoping that somebody will buy it. And they came to me in front of a big Codenames sign next to a table where we were demoing Codenames. This is like a year or 2 years after Codenames came out. And he said, I don't know if your company does party games or not, but would you be interested in this? And it's like, I said, have you heard of Codenames? He said, yeah. I said, well, we're the people that publish Codenames. Oh, right. So, and then he pitched me this silly party game that was a little bit like Cards Against Humanity. Thank you very much. No, thank you. And there was a guy who pitched an idea to us at Origins last year or the year before. And there were 40 different actions that you could do on your turn right from turn one. The learning curve for that game was just through the roof, and it might have been a good game, but he presented you with, here are your options on a sheet of A4 paper, all bullet points, and you're like, what? He said, yeah, pick one of those. What? And it was just like, yeah, he didn't understand the fact that you've got to make games a little bit more accessible. And his argument was, well, through the ages, there's lots of different actions to do. Well, yeah, but it leads you in gradually, and you don't do them all at the start of the game. Anyway, right. You can do that with the advanced search. Right, okay. Well, if somebody can tell me step by step how to do the advanced search and get my BGG collection or export it to a CSV file with the year as an actual column rather than just embedded into the title, then please let me know. And I'll try and do that. Now that you're doing more live streams, any plans for your camera setup? Not at the moment. I mean, I would like to have another camera focused in on my bit, but the way I do that is I take the feed from the overhead camera and I just put it in another window and zoom in, but it loses some of the quality and it looks a little bit pixelated and grainy. So that would be great if I could do that, but that would mean getting another ceiling mount and another camera, which I can do. It's not a problem. It's just I've got 3 cameras already. So yeah, not sure. Paul's saying a pitch for a football game would be my worst. Has there been a decent one yet? Yeah, I think there has been a decent football game. It was like a manager style game, but it took about 5 hours to play, I think. Right, back to the BGG Guild, and thank you very much to everybody on the BGG Guild. Speaking of the BGG Guild, there's not much activity on the BGG Guild at the moment. So if you're watching this, please subscribe. BGG Guild number 2258, and what you need to do is you need to join the guild, but then you need to click subscribe, because otherwise you'll never see anything. Now don't worry, I don't spam the guild with hundreds of messages, but I would like for the BGG Guild to become a little bit more active. There's not much activity on there at the moment, and whilst I obviously have the Slack group for my patron supporters, not everybody uses Slack. So BGG is a good place to put stuff. You can ask questions on the BGG Guild and I'll answer them. You can start your own discussions on the BGG Guild. Guild number 2258, join it and subscribe. If you're not sure how guilds work, please drop me a private message and I'll talk you through it. But yeah, it would be great to start getting the BGG Guild a little bit more active on there. Right, Nafmi says, and this is the question which I don't want to answer in full, but I want to acknowledge that I've been asked it. And it's a question which I know some other people have asked me in the past. So Nafmi says, you always let us know how busy you are. Have you had a vacation in the last 2 to 4 years? And if you did you actually relax? Because he worries about me. I always look tired. I do grueling hours and I seem to work constantly. All of this combined with the vast amount of streaming. He's a fan, but he's concerned for my health. Right. Don't you need a month holiday or something? Yes. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But what I am going to say is I suffer with a number of mental health issues, personality disorders, whatever you want to call them. I'm not going to go into too much detail. The reason why I've been working myself to the bone for the last 5 years with no holiday and hardly any days off is down to some deep-seated psychological issues that I am trying to resolve. So that's why. It's a problem. Don't ever do it. Take breaks, take holidays. I'm not doing that. And when I try and take a break, I can't relax. It's all part of a vicious cycle. So I've answered the question in as much detail as I'm prepared to give now. And I am trying to address those issues moving forward, which first of all means taking on less work and not organising your own convention. Oops. Right. Yes, I'd love a month off. Right. Questions in from Stevie, who's just joined in the chat. So I've just got round to your questions. There's quite a few here, so bear with us a minute and then we'll do the contest again later. Stevie says that he's the one in his group that owns the majority of the games and therefore he's also the one that learns them and teaches them as well. He's found an interesting case where players have a really hard time absorbing the rules through discussion and reading. Instead, they want to just start and end up asking all the same questions, often in the same order as you detailed in the rules explanation. So, Stevie, obviously we've met, we've spoken a little bit, but I have a particular way of teaching games, which I do sometimes, and I haven't been doing on the live streams, but there's certain times when I do it, which is the Gaming Rules Interactive Drip Feed method for teaching people how to play games, specifically designed for use at conventions, but it actually works elsewhere. And the Mage Knight stream the other day was a perfect example of that drip feed method. You teach somebody how to play a game, but you don't dump all the rules on them up front. Some people want every single rule up front. That's fine. For those people, teach them all the rules up front. But a lot of people, including me, for the first game, it's a learning game. I don't care who wins. The first game is going to be a learning game. Even if you know every single rule of the game, it's still going to be a learning game because you've no idea how it all fits together. Therefore, make that first game a better gaming experience by not dumping 40 minutes of rules on me before I move a piece. Teach me the basics, teach me the overview, and let's learn as we go. Yes, they will ask you all the same questions and possibly in the same order, but the point is the human brain and the capacity for taking information before doing anything. Very few people can listen to a rules explanation for more than 10 to 15 minutes without starting to forget stuff. Give them 10 minutes, then start doing stuff. It's been proven scientifically that most people learn best by doing. Give me the overview, then start. Paul, it's your turn. Place your worker on one of those spaces. Right, I'll put it there. Okay, well, now I'll explain what this space does. Sounds crazy, I know, but it works. And I have years of proof that it works. As long as everybody accepts it going in, everybody understands that it's a learning game, everybody understands you're going to be learning as you go, but the point is you start playing as soon as possible and you all learn together as a group as you're going on. And it works really well if done correctly. If not done correctly, it backfires and it goes horribly wrong. So practice it. So yes, he's saying to be fair to the poor listeners in the group, they do win their fair share of the games. It's not that they're uninterested, just that the rules don't stick. Again, back to the thing. Most people can't listen to rules constantly for more than 5, 10, 15 minutes. After that, brain just switches off. So just, learn it, do it as you go. Request for content. Food chain magnet ketchup mechanism. I don't have food chain magnet anymore. I sold it on. I didn't get on with the game. It was it's typical Splotter, and I played Bust the other night. It was fantastic. But the problem I had with Food Chain Magnet is a few things. I had difficulty in fully understanding the ramifications of your action. You put a tile there instead of there, and you've lost the game instead of won it. You've got to understand, if I put it there, then that's going to do this, and that's going to do that, and it's going to be reduced. And right, if you can think about that, it's great. The other problem I had with it is a move that player 4 can do can actually totally and utterly screw the game for player 1, which means player 2 wins. Through no fault of player 1. Basically, player 4 puts something there, and the impact is massive, and player 1's out of the game. I just didn't like that. So no, I don't have ketchup mechanism. Through the Ages New Wonders leaders when it becomes available, a discussion on new combo possibilities, the pros and cons of playing a random mix, insights you have gleaned from your history of plays. I could do that now. I could actually do a video on my experience with the game. Because I was involved in playtesting this over the last 3 years. Request for video production. Appreciate some shortcuts or bookmarks in the videos that help you find the setup, scoring, turn order, etc. So, if you mean show notes in the YouTube channel, yes, and it's on my list of things to do. I need to go back through all of my videos recently and add into the show notes the shortcuts that are on there to enable you to get to the right positions sooner rather than later. I need to get better at doing them. If anybody wants to volunteer to do them, please do. Let me know and I'll just copy and paste them in. It's something that I'd happily pay somebody else to do because I don't have the time to do it myself. If you're talking about bookmarks embedded into the video itself, yeah, I've never really done that. Have you any thoughts on the recent balance update to Tapestry? Yes, I do. I have. I've not played Tapestry, but I do have my own thoughts on what's happened with it. And they probably match some other people's thoughts. And I don't want this to come across as too negative, but it's an interesting one. Because on one hand, designing an asymmetric game that's perfectly balanced is almost impossible. And I absolutely respect and appreciate Jamie's approach to sort of even advertising the fact that we know people are going to find balance issues with this game. So be aware there's going to be some patch fixes coming down the road. And we're going to take your information through a controlled method and not just angry people on BGG to actually take all of that feedback, put it through the system and then come up with a load of fixes. And some people have said a game should be play tested well enough that we didn't need to have any fixes. Right, I get that. I get that argument. You know, Princess of Florence came out 20 years ago and hasn't had any balance fixes. Does that mean games were more play tested 20 years ago than they are now? Are people lazy now and just putting games out there and fixing them later? Is that what they're doing? I don't think you can really compare Tapestry to Princess of Florence because it's not really asymmetric. The other thing is, being a developer and a playtester myself, you have a limited amount of, data. You know, you'll have data from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 playtests, whatever. But when you publish your game and you put it out there, you're going to get data from 1,000 or 2,000. It's like Through the Ages. You know, we sat down and we played Through the Ages for an entire weekend and we made some notes on a piece of paper. And then Vlaja put the app for the expansion into the beta testers and got like 500 games worth of data straight away. You've got to put the game out there in front of a wider audience to get the data that you need to enable you to do it. And then we compare to things like Fantasy Flight Games that are notoriously bad, or were notoriously bad years ago for releasing a game, Twilight Imperium 3rd edition, and various other games, which a year after it comes out, people go, fighters are broken. And then they sort of go, oh yeah, fighters are broken. And everybody's house ruling it because fighters are just broken. They're just too good. And then they fix it with an expansion. So they don't change any of the rules of the base game, but what they do is they release an expansion which fixes the issues. But yeah, I mean, LCGs or even TCGs have errata to cards. So, you know, I can see all sides of the argument. I can see the people who go, this is rubbish, the game should have been play tested well enough. And I can understand why they think that, but it's just not possible. And I also like the fact that the game is being updated because I want to play a balanced game. And if a game comes out, I mean, Root got patches within a month or two of it coming out, and things got nerfed. It happens. That's just the reality. And I much prefer them to hold their hands up, admit it, release a whole load of fixes, and then say, there you go. If you want to play a more balanced game, play with these. Because I just want to play a balanced game, rather than hiding behind the, oh no, we play tested the game a million times, it's all fine, when everybody knows it's not. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Let's go back to the live chat. See what I've missed. Have you ever considered blogging? No, but I do a monthly video log. Yeah, I've never really considered blogging as such. How do you get to a guild on BGG despite using the site's forums? I'm not sure where the guilds are. And Paul's posted a link. Yeah, it's basically BoardGameGeek/guild/2258. There's the guild. Click join, click subscribe, and then every time something gets posted there, it will show up in your notifications. The other thing somebody said to me the other day is they've subscribed to me on BGG. So as well as subscribing to the guild, because I don't post every single video that I do to the guild because there'd be too many. But if you subscribe to me on BGG, then every time I post a video or every time a video appears with my name on, you'll get a notification. So that's quite cool as well. Right, just scrolling up in the chat. So Camille's here from Morocco. Yeah, cool. Time of Soccer, that was the game. That was it. Armchair Pimp, do you think that all game mechanisms have now been created and used? If not, what innovation do you think will be next? If I knew what innovation would be next, I would be doing it myself. And then, you know, yeah, right. I think it would be naive of me to say that all game mechanisms have been covered. Before Dominion came out, would anybody have thought of deck building as a mechanism? Possibly not. And then that came out. Would anybody have thought of Legacy? Would anybody have thought of, you know, all of the other mechanisms that have come out? I'm pretty sure there are mechanisms out there yet that haven't been discovered, haven't been used, and are waiting for the next innovation to come out. Who knows what that will be, or whether technology will be involved, I'm not sure. Andy's saying that his significant other is 7 months older than me. Yes, it is a significant birthday. And Andy's saying, yeah, he missed a load of content. Oh, I'm going to have to go back to the other window because it's just scrolling too much. Also, I just noticed that Paul Bryan earlier on said a pitch for a football game. Another pun. Pitch, football game. Yeah. So how do I get a hold of the guild? Done that. Scott was wrong about the advanced search. Okay. Brendan's here. Good afternoon. I've got a question from you at some point earlier on, which I'll get to. Armchair Pimp says, I rarely, stroke never, win games that I am teaching as I find I focus on the other players enjoying the game, so end up playing very much off the cuff. Still enjoy the sessions though. I'm right with you on that one. My focus when I'm playing a game is on the other players and making sure I've taught the game correctly and that they understand what's going on. So much so, I don't have the brain power to properly think through my moves as well as I'd like. And yeah, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. No problem at all. My focus is on everybody else. It's really nice to be able to sit down and play a game where you're like, right, so everybody knows these rules. Everybody knows all of these rules. Everybody's totally comfortable with the rules. Nobody needs a refresher. Right, off we go then. And suddenly I can actually concentrate on that. But I don't care whether I win or not. What do you do when you get stuck on a game design, says Camille. I'm not a games designer. Not really. Technically I am, but I'm not really. I mean, you know, I've been trying to design games for years and I've got stuck many, many times and I just go and have a shower and give up. So yeah. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm actually trying to get designers that I know to take my ideas and they design a game based on my idea, because then that's the most most likely chance it will ever actually get published. Acquire 1964. Yes, I have Acquire. Would I play it once a year? Possibly not. Perudo or Liar's Dice 1800. Would I play that once a year? Yes, because Perudo's pretty good, although it can run a bit long with a good player count. Pitt 1903. Not a big fan. Cathedral 1978. Do I have Cathedral? Wow, if I have it, I don't know it. Cosmic Encounter 1977. I'd like to burn my copy because I hate the game. Railway Rivals 1973. I'd play that with the average dice. I'd never play it without the average dice. 1973. Wow. Right, Joe says, surely though there's a minimum bar on playtesting and maybe Tapestry didn't actually clear that bar. Yes, you're absolutely right. There should be a minimum bar on playtesting. Did Tapestry clear that bar? That's not for us to say. How much playtesting did Jamie do? We don't know. Some people might say he didn't do enough. I can see why people would say that, but I'm not going to say that. I don't know. Oliver's got to go. He's having sausage and chips with a bit of veg. There you go. Thank you for reading out your daughter's question. I didn't just read out her question. Her question is the contest. So if you're watching this live, you can win £25 worth of games voucher from Games Law. All you need to do is send me an email, paul.grogan@outlook.com. Send an email. Which character out of Love Letter do you think that I should be? Or what's the closest one to me? Whatever. Pick a character from Love Letter, send that to me. If you're a Patreon supporter, you will get entered twice into the draw. So please mention that in the email as well. Right. Thank you for tackling all of my questions from Stevie. That's all right. And he says, I agree with you about the collection of data and impossibly releasing a perfect game. Some of the fixes were you get 35 points. Were they? Okay, I've not looked at it because I don't actually know the game. Right, back to the BGG Guild. Games are for life, not just Christmas. Which one currently not owned one would you have on your wish list? Right, there's only one game I can think of right now which I don't currently have, and it's on the way to me, so I don't own it right now. It's Crystal Palace. Because lots of people are telling me Crystal Palace is going to be one of my favourite games of this year. So therefore, Crystal Palace is a game that I want to have in my collection, and it will be in my collection soon. So there you go. Other than that, I can't think of anything. Andy Grant says, do you think the board game industry has reached saturation point in terms of the number of podcasters, stroke YouTubers, stroke content creators? That's another really good question. No. Some people will say yes, but I think there's room for everybody. I mean, yeah, every time somebody new comes along, it means people like me will get fewer views because people will go elsewhere. That's absolutely true. But the board game hobby is growing. More and more people are getting into the hobby. And I think the fact that there's so many different podcasters and content creators out there, it just means that people have more choice of where to go and get more different opinions. So I think it's a good thing. As long as they're up to a certain quality. What I don't want to do, what I personally don't like to see, is the ones which are where the content just, where somebody does a review of the game after playing it half a game and gets half the rules wrong and then does a review of it. Or a tutorial video where they get half the rules wrong and then don't put annotations or subtitles on afterwards. That's what I don't like. But that's up to them if they want to do that. Which game produced before you were a rulebook editor would you like to rewrite if given time to enable it to become more accessible to potential players? So I thought about this earlier on. I saw this question this afternoon. And this is a question I would actually like to put back out into the chat. So, for those people who are in the chat, pick a game that came out prior to 5 years ago, which had a rulebook which wasn't exactly completely clear, which you would like to give to me for me to redo and make it clearer. I mean, I've done one. In the last 2 weeks, I have redone the Kanban rulebook for Vital Lacerda. There's a new version of Kanban coming. It's going to be released on Kickstarter, Eagle Griffin Games next year. I have just finished work on the Google Doc and Vital Lacerda is doing the layout right now. That is a game which I was on the cusp of leaving my previous job and start working full-time in the industry when that game first came out. So it's 5-6 years ago now. And I've had the opportunity to take that old rule book, turn it on its head, rip it apart, rewrite it, and just make it better. But I've done that one. So yeah, answers in the chat. Republic of Rome, says Paul Bryan. Never heard of it. But yeah, if you want me to do it. Dune. I don't know. I mean, Dune has just had a new version from Gale Force 9. Is the new rulebook still terrible? Was the old rulebook terrible? I don't know. I've not actually... No, I think I have played Dune once in the 80s or very early 90s. Yeah, and then we go back to talking about Magic Realm. Maybe I should redo Magic Realm. Yeah, I mean, Joe said Magic Realm would be great to redo. Yeah, me and you are on the same wavelength with that, but, Magic Realm is never going to get picked up. No publisher is going to go anywhere near Magic Realm again because it's a niche within a niche. Or niche within a niche, however you want to pronounce it. So me spending a month of my life redoing the Magic Realm rulebook, probably not worth it. Right, Scott Hill says, with all of the game-related projects you have worked on, can you give any advice to upcoming designers, publishers and content creators regarding what colour of socks to wear for the best results. So definitely white, because white socks are a thing. Yeah? No, maybe not. Brendan wants to know, see, I said I'd get you 2 questions eventually. Do the cats have a favourite game? Well, while I was away in Essen, my Tainted Grail box was in the front room, open, because I was in the middle of sorting it all out. And the cats spent every night jumping in and out of the Tainted Grail box. So, probably that. Now, Thor, I need to have words with Thor, because Thor is definitely an Ameritrash player, because he loves dice, right? Dice are being batted around all over the house. Lowkey, not so much, but Thor, give him a dice, oh, loves it. Yeah, so he's just banging dice around everywhere. So I think Thor and me don't like the same types of games. Brendan says, with 2019 almost over, are there any games you have played this year that you would put into your top 10 of all time? Oh, that's a good question. It's easier for me to say which are my favourite games from this year. So is Cooper Island going to go into my top 10 of all time? I don't actually have a top 10 of all time. This is the thing. I have 50 or 60 or 70 top 10 games. I have loads of games that I say for me are top 10 games. I have a top few, which is Mage Knight, Through the Ages. What else? Yeah, not sure. Mage Knight, Through the Ages. There's probably a few more. So yeah, I don't know. I would have to actually have a top 10 in order to do that. And I've never got round to properly going through my collection and actually rating them. Because some of them are so very close and some of them I just can't compare. Right, back to the chats. So Hidden Assets is saying the new rulebook for June is not great. Oh, Myth. Ben Clapperton. Myth. I remember Myth. Didn't Myth get a 2.0 rulebook? Because, yeah, Myth, when it came out, the rulebook for that was totally and utterly incomprehensible. Yeah, I remember Myth when all of the controversy was out before that. Not before you started full-time, but First Martians. Yeah, First Martians. Yeah. Long story to tell you about that rulebook. I won't go into it here. Suffice it to say that for the year and a half before First Martians came out, I was the rulebook editor for Portal. I did the new version of Robinson Crusoe. I did a couple of other games for them as well. I think I did 3 other ones for them. And again, blowing my own trumpet. But at that time, those rulebooks, I think were good. People haven't really posted any questions about them. Then they stopped using me as a rulebook editor. And yeah, so. Stevie says, you're teaching June to 10 newbies in 2 games in the same week. You're going to go in at the deep end, advanced game, using the WBC 2019 modifications, I may die. Why are you doing that to yourself? Says the man who decided to teach Through the Ages to 8 people at the same time over 2 groups. Never do that again. Northern in Space says, Myth 2.0 was better than 1.0. It's probably your favourite game ever. Well, get down here and teach me how to play. Because I've been interested in it. But then games with bad rulebooks, I'm like, why bother when there's games with good rulebooks? Yeah, Mage Knight and Through the Ages. Yeah, we're definitely alike, Joe. Arkham Horror Living Card Game. Yeah, Rick, yeah, you're right. I've actually said that that's in my top 5 at the moment. So Arkham Horror Living Card Game is in my top 5. I don't know where it is in my top 5. And it's interesting why it's in my top 5, because it has things in it which I don't like in games, but I just love the game. What game would you suggest for a 9-year-old to prize them away from screens? I failed with My Little Scythe. I don't know what the age range is for My Little Scythe. But I would, again, that's another question I would put. Well, we talked about the BGG Guild earlier on, and this is the kind of question that I'd love to have answered on the BGG Guild. Having it answered in the live chat is great, but you get in my opinion, and you get in a few people in the chat. If you post it to the BGG Guild, it's there forever. So pop onto the BGG Guild now, guild number 2258, join, subscribe, and post a question and say, what games would you suggest for 9-year-olds to prize them away from screens? I failed with My Little Scythe. And let's get a discussion going on the BGG Guild, and lots of people can put their ideas on there. I can't answer the answer myself. I don't play games with 9-year-olds, so I'm not sure. But I think the Forbidden Desert, the ones by Matt Leacock, I think they're a good introduction to board games, but I don't know what the age range is on them. How long does it take with a bad rulebook before you declare it a bad rulebook? Well, it's interesting because sometimes, I mean, I'll get a rulebook and I'll initially do this and I'll look through it and I'm looking for examples, call out boxes, structure, itemized components list, good setup diagram. I'm looking at that. That's what I'm looking for initially. But there is one game, I think earlier this year, where I did that too. And I thought, okay, initial look, yeah, layout looks good. Then when I actually started reading it, I was like, what? And it was just all over the place. So sometimes I can tell right from the start. Absolutely. I mean, the first edition of Conan, when Conan first came out, that rulebook you could tell was bad from page 1. Because you open it up and it combines the setup and the components list on page 1. And then page 2 is how to roll dice for combat. That is the introduction to the game. Not, welcome to Conan. This is a multiplayer game where one player plays the overlord and the other players are cooperating together to fight that. It's a scenario. None of that. It literally just set up how to fight. So that was a terrible rulebook that was obvious from page 1. Some games it takes a lot more. Some games you read the rulebook and you think, okay, this is fine. And then you start playing and you're like, oh, wait a minute. What happens if this happens? That's not covered. What happens if this? That's not covered. That's a bad rulebook as well, but it looked good on the surface. So it really depends. Scott's got to go because he's playing games. That's a good enough reason to go. Kenty's here. So Risk Star Wars Edition, a miniatures game like a simple Queen's Gambit, but rulebook has ambiguity. Designers gave clarifications in the play session, but has dozens of pages of discussion. Yeah, it's such a shame when it happens, and it's just, why bother? Why bother? Right, let's go to... is Lacerda the best games designer? Well, I'm never, even if I think he is, I'm never going to say that. Vital Lacerda, he's a client of mine, he's become a friend, and I'm going to be seeing him on Friday. So, no, I'm seeing him on Thursday. Vital is coming to GridCon. GridCon, for those people who don't know, is my own convention. I'm hosting my own convention. It starts in 4 days' time. And Vital Lacerda is going to be there, teaching people how to play his games, which is very cool. He said, I've never been to a UK convention, Paul, so I might as well come to yours. I'm like, cool. It's like, if you're going to go to a UK convention, come into my small 200-person one in Devon in November. Yeah. So Armchair Pimp's just joined. Ask the Guild. Yes. And I hope you get some answers. Thanks for answering the silly sock question. Well, obviously white. The Leacock ones are forbidden. Yeah, Forbidden Island. That's it. Forbidden Island and Forbidden Desert. So try them. And he did another one a few years later. I can't remember what that was. Some people don't like having the same rule appear several times in a rule book. What's my opinion? Right. Depends on the rule, and it depends how it's done. But there are certain games where if a rule is important, you do need to have it multiple times in the rule book at the points where it is relevant. And by not doing that, by having an important rule just at the start, it gets missed later on. If I'm writing that rule book, I will use the word remember. So at the start of the game, I will say something, 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 and each space can only hold one counter, right? And then 5 pages later in the action where it says, take as many resources as you want from the market. Remember, each of your storage slots can only hold one resource. So I'll put it in there then. And you're repeating important rules. So sometimes it is very important to repeat important rules. And I feel more strongly about this now because a couple of years ago, and I can't even remember the game, but I did a rule book for a game and there was an important rule and it was in the rule book, but it needed to be in the rule book in at least one other place where it was relevant, and we didn't put it in there because we'd already put it in there and people kept missing it and people forgot it. So I've learned from that. So if you don't think a rule book should have a rule in multiple places, then unfortunately, if you don't put it in multiple places, some people miss it. But you want to do it properly. What you don't want to do is you don't want to do what, I mean, Underwater Cities is a good rule book, but the start of Underwater Cities, within the space of half a page, repeated the same lot of text and said, on your turn, you will do one act, you will play a card, do the action, and perform the card's effect. And it said that like 3 times in the same paragraph, and it was just a bit too much. Anyway, what computer games does a 9-year-old play? That's Rick answering Armchair Pimp's question. Forbidden Skies. Okay, no, there's another one. I think when I interviewed Matt Leacock on my podcast 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, he talked about a game that he designed, which wasn't in the Forbidden series, but was also suitable for kids. And I can't remember what it was called, so I'm going to look it up. Games designed by Matt Leacock. So Forbidden Desert, Matt Leacock, and let's see if I can find it. Might be here a while, because he's designed a lot of games. Forbidden Sky, Forbidden Desert. Page 1 of 4. Right, page 2. Mole Rats in Space. That was it. Mole Rats in Space. That's the one he was talking about, which again he said was suitable for kids. Right, we are done with the questions of the BGG Guild. We're up to date with the live chat. A quick shout out about the contest. Drop me an email if you're watching this live. paul.grogan@outlook.com. Tell me which character from Love Letter you think I am. Any edition of the game. If you're a patron supporter, mention that in the email. And one lucky winner is going to win £25 worth of game vouchers. Now, I'm going to go through the questions from the Board Game Trading and Chat UK Facebook group quickly, because I'm extremely hungry. Vicky's downstairs. She's probably cooked dinner. It's probably going cold. Steve Law says, house rules, yay or nay? I could talk for 10 minutes about this. Yay. I wrote an article on this for the Whose Turn Is It Anyway podcast about 5 years ago. House rules, yes, definitely. In certain situations. If the house rule that you're going to implement makes your enjoyment of the game better and the people who you play the game with better, use it. If your house rule is a balance fix to the game because of a perceived balance issue that you've got with the game, make it. As long as it makes the game better for you, that's absolutely fine. What I have a problem with, and I'm going to upset some people by saying this, but this is how I feel, is the people who are absolutely adamant you should never, ever play a game with any house rules because it's going against the designer's intent, and the designers are God, and they've playtested their game 1,000,000 times, and it's absolutely perfect, and if you put a house rule in, then it's insulting them as a designer. Right, totally and utterly wrong. I can't disagree with that statement anymore. You look at all the games we talked about earlier on which need patch fixes. Root has need patch fixes to make the game more balanced. Tapestry has needed patch fixes to make the game more balanced. The people who came up with the fixes for Tapestry have probably made those changes as house rules for their game sessions. And those house rules have now become official rules. That's happened in a number of cases where house rules for games have actually been turned into official rules for second edition versions of the game or expansions. And that's because they started as house rules because of a perceived balance issue with the game or something else. So yes, definitely house rules, and I've used a few of them myself. Chewy says, other than games that you have already, what is the top game of your wish list for Christmas? Yeah, so I mentioned that. That was Crystal Palace. Brian Hunt says, and Brian's in the chat, I think, if he's still here. Yes, he's still here. Thunderbirds. No, that wasn't the one I was thinking of. But yeah, that was another Matt Leacock game. Given the benefit of hindsight, if you were still working in IT and were about to consider jumping into the board game industry, what would you do differently this time? So what I would do differently is not work non-stop for 5 years with no holiday, because I'm suffering from the effects of that. I don't know what else I'd do differently, apart from, yeah, just not kill myself to work every hour possible thinking that, oh my God, I need to work hard, I need to do this, otherwise it's not going to be successful. Gaming Rules was already successful when I started it, thankfully, because I had built such a good working relationship with a number of people in the industry that I wasn't short of work from the start. But I was so worried about it. And because I took a pay cut from this to this, and that had an impact on me psychologically. I was like, oh dear, what have I done? I thought, well, if I work 70 hours a week, I'll get to here, which is better than here. And yeah, I would approach it from a different perspective mentally. But that's with the benefit of hindsight. If you'd have told myself that 5 years ago, I still wouldn't have done it because I am stubborn. Graham wants to know if there is a gap in the rules and a rules question is asked publicly to resolve it, whose job is it to answer the question? Is it the publisher or the designer? And if they give a different answer, whose answer is the most correct? This is a brilliant question, but there's a third thing there you haven't considered. Because for years, I would be the one who answered the rules questions for CGE games on Board Game Geek, and I still do. So Vlogger doesn't pop on and answer rules questions, and CGE don't pop on and answer rules questions. They do now, but they didn't. I did. I was their official appointed representative for answering rules questions. But whose job is it? Is it the designer or the publisher? Either. It depends on the designer's role in the game. And this is where, and this is interesting because working in the games industry, I have learned so many different things about how different things are done. And I've said before, so I'll say it again for those people who haven't heard me say it. You get a game. Right. I'm not going to take that game off the wall because it'll fall out. So you find a game. There's a name of a designer on that box. That designer might be involved in that game 90% or 95%. It might be their game and they've had involvement with it from start to finish. And they go on BGG and they're answering rules questions and they're supporting the game. Might be. Or the name of the designer on the box might be responsible for about 30% of what's actually in the box. And they're never going to admit this. The publishers are never going to admit it. But it happens. Designers sometimes sell their ideas to publishers. The publisher then takes over and the publisher develops the game. And sometimes, and I've had experience with this myself, what the publisher does to the game is more than 50% of the final product. Yet it's still the name of the designer on the box, even though it's not really their game in the end. And in that situation, it's probably not the designer that's going to be answering the question. It's probably the publisher. Because in some cases, the designer doesn't actually know what they've done with their game. If you get two people answering and, saying if they give different answers, whose answer is the most correct? Again, it really does depend on the situation. And I know a lot of people, and you get this with people like Martin Wallace. And I'm saying this, I like Martin, I respect Martin, but obviously Martin has run-ins with various people and he's upset a lot of people, or people have upset him, or there's a lot of controversy around some of the things he does. Martin posts a rules answer to a game that he was involved in on BGG, and then the publisher posts another answer that disagrees with it. Who knows? I'm picking on Martin just because I wanted to pick a name of somebody who I know who has designed a game, and then the game comes out and Martin's not involved in it. So yeah, it really does depend. Sometimes the designer stepped out of the development process and they're not the right people to answer the question. And sometimes the designer might not be happy with the end result of the game. And then they'll go on BGG and they'll post their idea of the answer. And the publisher won't be happy, but it's a mess. Sometimes it can get really messy. It's a really good question. And it really does depend on the game, and it depends on the publisher, and it depends on the designer. Richard Klein responded and said he knows of at least one case where the publisher and the designer have different opinions of a rules question, but the designer has said go with the publisher as they own it. And that's the other thing as well, ownership. The publisher owns the rights to the game. They would have paid the designer would have been given a percentage or a fixed sum or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's the publisher who owns that game. So there you go. Right. Back to the live show. From a straight rule standpoint, how do you tackle a game like Lisboa or Escape Plan to learn it effectively? I use my approach. And I have a story that I can tell you about BGG Con 2 years ago, where Lisboa was one of the hot games. It was in the hot games area. Lisboa was in the hot games area. And the BGG crew that teach people how to play games in the hot games area are great, right? And I know a lot of them, and they're really nice people, and they get given the list of hot games. And it's 25 games, and suddenly they've got to learn as many of those games as they can in a 2-week period, and then go around and teach them. And they do that very well for a certain number of games. Unfortunately, each year at BGGCon, there are a group of games which fall into the "this is going to take me a week to learn" category. And Lisboa and On Mars and various other games fall into that category. And I think it's not feasible because the BGG crew don't liaise with each other. So they'll look at the list and they'll learn as many as they can. And that year, one person had read the rules for Lisboa and that was it. The rest of them didn't know that game at all. And people were sitting down and trying to learn Lisboa from the rulebook. And you can, it's a good rulebook, he says. But it's a heavy game. It's going to take you 2 hours to slog through the rulebook and try and play. And you don't want to be doing that at a convention. Now, Lisboa was set up on the table next to me, and I was demoing Pulsar 2849 for 4 days solid. And one time, Lisboa was being played next to me, and they sat down to learn how to play it. And one of the BGG crew, I think it was John, and I get on with John, and John's great. John was the only person who'd read the rulebook, but all he'd done is read the rulebook. He'd never played the game, he's never taught the game or anything. He came over, he spent an hour, he did the best job he could. He explained to them as much of the game as he could remember from the rulebook, and he talked to them for an hour. Because they started that at the same time as I started one of my Pulsar 2849 demos. An hour later, my demo had finished, I went on a lunch break, and because I have this medical condition where if I see anybody near me trying to play a game that I know how to play, I will stop what I'm doing, forego getting food, not have a rest, and go and help them out. I joke that it's a medical condition, but that's what I do. So I was like, I don't need to eat, I don't need a break, they need to play Lisboa. John had just walked away. I think it was John, sorry if it's not. So I went over, I said, are you looking to play the game? They said, yes. I said, have you had a full explanation of the rules? They said, yes. I said, okay, have you got any questions about it? They went, yeah. I said, how much of the explanation did you understand? And they went, none of it. Because he'd basically just told them every rule of the game in an hour, and they were just like, pfft. So what I did, I said, look, are you happy trying out my demo method where we're going to start playing? I'm going to give you a 1-minute overview, and then we're going to start playing. And we're going to spend an hour, and you're just going to make semi-random moves, not really knowing what's happening, but you will learn how to play by doing rather than listening to me tell you everything about it. And they went, yeah, we're definitely up for that. They agreed to it, and we did it. So I gave them a minute overview of the game, and then I said, right, you're the first player. You've got 5 cards in hand. Pick one of them at random. So he did, and we played it, and I said, and that does this, and that does this, and that moves them to there. You understand that? Yeah, that's what you've done. We're all good. Next player, pick a card at random. Do that. Put it here. Right, what that does is this. And we did that. And we spent 45 minutes playing a couple of rounds, and by the end of those 45 minutes, they knew 75% of the rules of the game, but they'd learnt it by doing it. So, a very, very long-winded way of me saying, you use my learn by doing method. For a super heavy game like that, accept that it's a learning game, accept that the winner doesn't matter, accept the fact that you're probably not even going to play a full game, and just accept the fact that you're going to learn by doing, and then you just jump in, start doing stuff, and see what happens. Now, the caveat is, I'm a safety net. Whenever I'm demoing that way, don't worry if you think, oh, that'll never work for me. If you ever do a move that's stupidly bad, I will let you take it back. Of course, I'm not going to let you make some stupid move that knocks you out of the game. Oh, you've played a card there. Oh, you lose 10 points. Oh, well, you'll learn next time. No, you don't do that. You explain to them that if they go there, that's going to do that, which is going to trigger this, and it's going to require you feeding your people, and you have no food, so you probably don't want to do that. Okay, right, yeah, I won't do that. I'll go here and get some food. There you go. Anyway, the method works. Those people who think it doesn't work are wrong, because it does. So that's how I teach Lisboa and Escape Plan effectively, and that's how I've taught many Vital Lacerda games over the last 5 years, and I know it works. Plumber has gone. The cost is 2 reasonably priced games. Right. Can you tell us something about Space Base? Yes, I can. Space Base, I like Space Base. It's a nice game. It's sort of like Machikoro, but fixed. Now, I've not played Machikoro, but I know a lot of people have and said it's not good and it's a bit broken. And Space Base is a little bit like that. I quite like it. It plays in about an hour to 90 minutes. It's quite cool. Yeah. You get income when it's other people's turn. So when it's somebody else's turn, they'll roll some dice and your cards will generate stuff when it's their turn. So you're usually doing something when it's not your turn, just generating resources and planning what you're going to do. The problem with house games is that they make the game less portable. Yeah, you can't play a game at home with a bunch of house rules and then play with new people. Exactly right. Not Space Base, but Space Race. Space Race. Okay. Well, I've told you about Space Base. All I can tell you about Space Race is that I'm going to be working on the rulebook. The publisher of the game has accepted, I think, that the rulebook could do with some work and has contacted me. And only last week have I agreed to work on it. If I think it's Space Race. Yeah, Space Race. So I'm going to be working on a rulebook for it. I think it's a game, a little card game, but there's lots of text on cards. Not played it yet. Are you going to get a chance to play anything you would like to play at GridCon? I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to, but I am not committing myself to anything just in case. But I'd love to play Cloudspire. I'd love to play Imperial Assault. There's a whole bunch of games. In fact, my hallway is filled with all of the games that I'm taking to be part of the games library. And I would absolutely love to play 20 of those if I had a chance at GridCon. So yeah, I'd love to, but Vicky's going to be on reception all the time, and I don't want to go and play games and leave her on the reception if it's busy. So we will see. Right, what happened with Richard Garfield with Robo Rally? The new edition, he publicly disagreed with the publisher. Oh, right. Tell me more. Yeah, tell me more. Drop me a message about that or something, or post it in the BGG Guild. I don't know that story, and I'd like to know more, because that sounds interesting. Stevie says, your first game of Escape Plan from the rules, cold, was 90 minutes just for rules and setup and then 3 hours for gameplay. Exactly. And if that's fine, second game was 90 minutes including rules. Yeah, if you're happy to do that and all learn from the rules and spend 90 minutes with rules and setup, fine, go for it. Absolutely fine, especially if nobody knows how to do it. Are you going to cover some 18xx games? I am not planning to. I'm not that big of a fan of 18xx games. There are other channels available that cover 18xx games. Who's the designer of Space Race? I do know this because Space Race 2020. Marek Loscott, Michael Mikez, and Jan Sukal. Interesting. I thought Space Race has already been out. If this is the same game. Right. Just bear with us a minute, because I'm going to search through my emails. Yeah, it's Michael Mikez, and I've agreed to do the rulebook. Rulebook editing and a how to play video for Space Race. And I think we've talked about doing it like February, March next year, because I'm pretty much booked up until then. But I thought Space Race had already come out. But according to BGG, Space Race is a 1 to 5 player game, which is coming out in 2020. So what am I thinking of then? I'm thinking of Space Race, the card game. Right, interesting. Which is by the same people. Ah, right, okay. I don't know what I've agreed to. I think I've agreed to do a rulebook editing and a video for Space Race, which isn't out yet. Oh, there we go then. Right, back to the chat. The board game is new, the card game is already out. Yeah, so Space Race is a Kickstarter that is expected to ship next summer. Okay, so that's what I've agreed to do. I thought it was going to be for like a new edition of the card game, but it's not. So there we go. I probably should look into that more before I agree to doing it, but it's fine. He came to speak to me at Essen, thoroughly nice chap, so yeah, I've agreed to do the work. Right. Any more questions on the Facebook group? James is saying black cats are better than their multicoloured inferiors in every way. Agree, strongly agree. Is this even a question? I can't say which is my favourite out of our two cats. They have different personalities. John Sullivan says, unfortunately can't make the show, but do you think that all the main game mechanisms have been covered? Area control, worker placement, engine building and so on? Or do you think that there are new exciting mechanisms still to come? Kind of answered this earlier on when somebody asked about what's the next thing on the horizon. There are new games that have lovely components, but all seem to be based on new takes and combinations of previous mechanisms. As an addendum to the above question, which do you think is the most popular and which is the most enjoyable game mechanism? That's not for me to decide, but that's another question for the BGG Guild. I'm really pushing it today, aren't I? I mean, I love worker placement. I love deck building. I love deck building when it isn't the play all and then discard your hand and draw new ones. Not a big fan of that because it tends to be the luck factor of did I get the combo in my hand at one time. I like the deck building where you can selectively keep some cards in hand or reserve them and do that sort of stuff. That's quite cool. But yeah, love deck building as a mechanism. Love worker placement game. I like the fact that people are still building on those mechanisms and they're doing them in slightly different ways. You know, when we used to have worker placement, which was, nope, one worker per spot and that's it. And then we had Russian Railroads, which is like, that spot uses 2 workers. And then we had Energy Empire, which is like, well, he's already done that action, but you can do it as well, but you have to pay extra. So things like that are quite cool. And then you have Keeper. Keeper, yeah, which is, okay, somebody else has already used that action, but now if you use that action, it will be better for you, but then they get a bonus as well. You know, so lots of clever intricacies involved in tweaking things. I'm just making up words now because I'm hungry and I'm falling asleep. And that is it from the Facebook question. So we are pretty much done. I'm going to go back to the live chat. If I come to UKGE and stay on a few extra days, can I be in a live play video? Yeah. Souldiver66 is here just at the time I'm about to disappear. It's been the longest live Q&A ever. I've really enjoyed it, but I do need to go because I've got Gridcon stuff to do and food to eat. Adam's saying, have you seen the Kickstarter game with RFID chips that learns and adapts as you play? Called Colonies. If you mean Beyond Colonies Beyond Humanity, yes, I've seen it. And I have agreed to do a video for it at some point when it comes out. Yeah, it looks amazing. If you're talking about innovation, wow. Yeah, it looks incredible. So Stevie says, yeah, if you come to UKGE and stay on a few extra days, can you be in a live play video? Well, if you are here, you can be in a live play video, but I won't be doing any live play videos at UKGE because that's a few hours away from where I am. Anyway, we're all done. Thank you very much to everybody in the chat. And remember, if you're watching this live, send me an email and you will get entered into the contest to win £25 worth of game vouchers from Games Law. And if you're a Patreon supporter, mention that in the email. paul.grogan@outlook.com is the email address. And you just need to mail me and tell me what character do you think I should be from Love Letter. Will you ever come over to Switzerland? Possibly. Never say no. I don't really do skiing, and I know that's one reason to go to Switzerland, but there's probably other stuff to do in Switzerland as well. But yeah, it's not on my list of places to go to, but yeah, maybe I will. Right, so I need to go eat. Before I go, I just wanted to say a massive shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. A lot of Patreon supporters are in the live chat. A lot of people are in the chat who are not Patreon supporters. I don't want to go out there and do what some other people do and beg people for money. I just want to say, if you like the content that I make, a lot of the content that I make is purely funded through my Patreon campaign. So if you do enjoy it, please consider me supporting me on Patreon. My next stretch goal, effectively, is that I'm going to start doing live playthroughs. Now, I've been doing a lot of live playthroughs this month. It was always the plan that I was going to take November and December 50% off work. Thanks to the support of my Patreon campaign over the last sort of 6 months or so, I was able to do that. I was in a financial position where I could do that and do lots and lots of live playthroughs. Those live playthroughs, unfortunately, are not going to continue at the same rate moving into next year. But if the Patreon campaign gets more and I reach the next goal, then I am going to be able to carry on doing not as many as I'm doing now, but I will be able to do some, and it will be voted on by my Patreon supporters. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much to everybody in the chat. This was a blast. I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to go now. Vicky's downstairs, probably starving to death. And then I will speak to Xsplit and we'll try and get the Facebook chat working for next time. So if you were watching this on Facebook and chatting away in the Facebook stream, apologies, but don't blame me. It's not my fault that it's not working. That's everything. I will see some of you at GridCon. I was going to talk about GridCon, but I haven't had a chance. I'll see some of you at GridCon, and then join me for December's live Q&A, which I might do between Christmas and New Year, or I might do just before Christmas. Not sure yet, but I'll do one in December. And that's it. See you later all. Take care.
Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppersLLC.com.